Lex.
Jordan.
We're here.
We're here. We made it.
All right. We did make it because we were in the car and I was driving. We got to fill people in. We had like a little pregame moment.
We did.
Before we got here. And I feel like we got to catch people up to that because that's going to kind of catapult us, I think, for what we're going to talk about today. But before we even get into that, for those that don't know you, and you all should know this man, but tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Give us the whole backstory, man.
Whole backstory.
Yeah.
Grew up in Perth, Western Australia, which is, if you don't know it, one of the most remote capital cities on the planet. Beautiful place. Moved here when I was about 28 years old in 2007.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a latecomer. I had to wait for the right opportunity to getting to America is not easy. Sure. With visas and all of that kind of thing. So took my time and finally got here in 07 and haven't left, basically. I'm official.
You're a real deal New Yorker.
I'm a real deal New Yorker.
And I'll as a lifelong New Yorker, I'll vouch for that. You get the little badge. But so what brought you here initially though? Like, was it music? Was it just, hey, change of pace? Like,
yeah, I'd always dreamt of living in New York.
Interesting.
Yeah, I always had this fascination with it and used to just dream about coming here. So I'd been playing a bit in Australia for quite a while and, just a few little things aligned and I was able to get in the door in 2007. And I really just came to there's a lot of great musicians in Australia. A lot of great bass players from Perth as well, like Dane Alderson.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're aware of Dane, right?
Yellow Jackets for anybody who's listening, and one of the nicest people on the planet.
Yeah, amazing, right?
He's an amazing dude.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, Dane.
We're all there, but we're very cut off from the rest of the world. We're even cut off within the country.
Interesting.
A lot of the stuff happens on the east side, Melbourne and Sydney. But Perth has created, all of these, Tame Impala, right?
Yeah, Tame
all of these
Impala.
amazing artists. So I just had this this feeling I have to get out. I have to go and try it.
Got it.
Right? I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know if I told myself, don't expect to get a gig like in the first 2 years.
So this was like a straight roll of the dice.
Straight roll of the dice.
We're just ripping the Band-Aid. Let's go for it.
Yeah, pretty much. I hadn't lived outside of the country up until. So it's the most. Yeah. It's the biggest move you could make.
I mean,
the complete opposite.
Dude, especially, it's not like, hey, I was living in New Jersey and I decided to cross state lines. No, you got a whole day of flying.
Quick trip across the bridge. It's a good 30 hours of flying. So I just, I packed up a couple of bags and I came over. Dang. And then, first year was pretty interesting.
Was it what you expected or did it like?
It was, you kind of, I was always intimidated by the thought of New York, right?
Interesting.
Because it's biggest city on the planet. Everybody that wants to be somebody comes here. So I really told myself, okay, don't get high hopes about playing any music, just go and see things, meet people. But I was fortunate. I think it was about 6 months in, I just through a series of circumstances, I met some local artists that hosted a jam session. It's called Freestyle Mondays. That was kind of like the OG. Yeah, the OG. Yeah, that was the OG. We're gonna talk about that. Jam,
yes,
right?
That was the OG jam. Yep.
And that happened at a venue called Sin Sin, which was on 5th and 2nd. No longer with us, Sin Sin.
Man, R.I.P.
Like divey little. Like I would do my laundry on Tuesdays because I just stank from the bar, right? But we would do that every week. We would start at 1 a.m. We would start at 1 a.m. Full improvised like hip hop jam session. Live musicians, and I got into that house band pretty quickly. Wow! After I moved here, and that kind of really started to open the doors. For everything. Back then, as we were discussing on the way here, you didn't really have the same depth of social media and that kind of thing. We had MySpace, right? I think it was even before Facebook. So there was still like an organic.
Yeah, when we used to rank friends.
Yeah, top 8.
Because no one thought that would be a problem down the road. Be like, hey, you're number one and you're number 2.
The beginning of the end of
the beginning
society.
Of society started with MySpace.
But there was still that sense of, organic discovery.
Yeah.
And I happened across this scene, like completely by chance. Wow. And that just opened up everything.
And I feel like New York is, and we were talking about this in the car. I mean, it's just gone through these waves and seasons between venues. Like venues are not I think particularly New York is a unique location when it comes to venues, right? Because a lot of other cities and towns, you know, it's either more medium or bigger size stuff. It's theaters. It's a little bit different. Whereas like New York, I mean, because we were saying like the West Village was one scene, the East Village was another, Harlem was another scene. Like everything kind of had its own little lane. Yeah. And the venue was a big part of that. It was a community hub.
Yep. So everything, like you say, you know, pockets, right?
Yeah.
West Village has a particular style. East Village downtown is a particular style. Harlem had a particular style. But the beauty of it was that you could be from this pocket to that pocket in 10 minutes.
Yep.
So the music nights that we would have might start. Yeah. You know, maybe we start in the West Village. Maybe we go by the Wah. Yeah. Drop by Rockwood Music Hall. End up at New Blue. Yeah. Yep. You know, Blue Note, whatever it is. And you could hit 4 or 5 shows in one night. Yeah. And I remember like when I was getting started, you know, I didn't do it quite to this degree, but I knew bass players that would play 3 gigs a night. Yeah. And they would do the singer-songwriter at 7 p.m. Rockwood Stage 1. Yeah. Then they would bounce over to West Village, do the West Village set, and then do the late night set somewhere else. Yep. And it had that real like, you know, wow, I'm a working musician kind of thing where you just throw the bass on your back, get on the subway and you're in the next spot. Yeah. It's like nothing I'd ever experienced before. It is unique. And it's funny you mentioned that. Just part of why I'm laughing too is I'm remembering, so my dad, you know, he would always tell these stories, especially like usually like in the 70s and stuff. He's like, he had all these venues. He goes, it was like a little group of us. We would go, we would sit in. He goes, we would burn for like 3 songs and then we bounce to go to the next place. And then like smoke them there. Yeah. And that was kind of the culture that existed. And you had a lot of, I mean, he was in that scene, especially with like when Steve Kahn and like Steve Jordan were playing together, you know, Anthony Jackson was like all that stuff. And New York was the hub for all of these groups that we've got today, and that we're all like, where did it start? It started in these venues. Yeah, it started in these venues, and part of the grind of being a musician was to go to as many places and canvas yourself in front of as many people as possible, right? Yeah. To start to build that network. But I also feel like, and tell me if you agree with this or not, like relationship building was also very different during those years too, because it's like these relationships were genuine, because as opposed to like you know, music Olympics or something. 100%. Yeah. But you know, social media I think is definitely a big part of that, right? Because you can turn up in New York tomorrow, right? Not know anyone on a personal level, but already have all of these connections. Yeah. And I see it on Monday nights. I see people that turn up to New Blue to Producer Mondays on every week that are just getting here. But they already have these online friendships. They've been talking with people, but it's, I don't know. I kind of like, you don't really get to know someone until you're in the room with them. Absolutely. You know, having a jam or sharing a drink, whatever it is. Yeah. I mean, I think especially once you start to get to know the person, the music makes sense. Yeah, of course. Because it's a conversation, right? It totally is. It's a conversation. So how can you have a real conversation with somebody that you don't know intimately? Yeah. And then the music translates from that once you understand how someone else plays, and you can talk back and forth with them about that. And I feel like that's a nice little setup there, because you dropped it, Producer Mondays, but New Blue. So for those that are listening and may not know what New Blue is an incredible venue. Is actually now 2. We had an original location over in the Lower East Side, and it is, I would say that the hubs that we're talking about, New Blue is kind of one of those in New York City these days, especially for younger musicians and younger audiences. It's an incredibly eclectic environment. It's not like because we were talking in the car, like certain venues kind of have like a thing. Yeah. Where New Blue sort of just throws theme and stuff out the window. Our thing is no thing, right? Exactly. So the only rule with this night is we don't do cover songs. So then it's really an amalgamation of everything. And we've had opera singers singing opera over a drum and bass groove, or tap dancers doing something with a solo drummer, right? So for those who don't know what Producer Monday is, and book your plane tickets now and get here, and drink a lot of coffee, especially if you work the next day. But it's a late night hang. But what is Producer Monday? How did it start? Paint the picture for us. Yeah, so I feel like we started in 2018, and Ray Angry was the founder. Ray's an incredible producer,
writer,
pianist,
musician,
organist, keyboard player.
It's amazing.
Works with everybody,
Yep.
right? And Ray started it at the time. I remember being brought into it a little bit after it started, but it really was about producers when he started it. And Ray's been working with the Roots for quite some time.
Yeah, a long time, yeah.
And there's a Stro Elliott does a lot of, the finger drumming and the sampling and that kind of stuff. And Stro was a big part of it at the beginning. So it actually had a very different vibe. You had Ray on keys, you had a few guys up on the back on laptops and pads. And it really was, literally about producers. But the theme of that has carried through to what we do now, right? And the idea with what we do now is that we're not thinking about it as a jam.
Yeah,
We're not. Ray likes to describe it as a live studio session.
Yeah.
So when we play the first set, house band plays the first set, we're really thinking about, okay, let's take an idea, whoever starts it, and build an arrangement around this, and try and create as much space to let things happen, let it evolve. And so on and so forth.
And I love how Free always, DJ Free, shout out, how he introduces and sets up the night.
He sets up the night.
Like an hour before, so he'll usually be spinning, and it's funny because technically on the flyer it always says, what did we start at, like 10:30 or 11?
Yeah,
it never does.
I think 10.
We
start at 11.
There's
real time and New Blue time.
Yeah, exactly.
New Blue time, just push everything by an hour.
I remember the first time I took my wife, she's like, yo, they're an hour late. I'm like, no, they're not.
You're an hour early,
basically. You're an hour early,
yeah.
exactly. But they'll spinning some incredible music. I mean, and he always says, right, this is a live recording session.
Yeah,
he's trickling that in throughout the night.
He's trickling that in
because so even as an audience, right?
Correct. Yeah. We want the audience to feel like they're part of musical creation, because we can really go anywhere and see. You can see a jam session anywhere, right? Everybody playing same time, all this kind of stuff, but. I mean, on a personal level, I'm always thinking the mindset, well, what is my part going to be? And I often come in, when we start the first song, I try and come in as late as I possibly can.
Oh, you're super patient.
On the music.
Super patient.
Because it takes a while for things, I want to see where things settle, because the power that we have as a bass player, I mean, I have the power to transform everything when I come in. So I have to be very deliberate about what I'm going to do, and I want to wait to see where Ray settles with his choice of harmony, and see where Randy settles on guitar. Yeah, whether he's going to play a line that I can play along with, or whether I'm going to follow the changes, or whether I'm going to play something completely different. Yeah, and then the other thing is when you do this kind of music, you're somewhat you can't always change 6 people's minds simultaneously to go to the next place, but you have to evolve it. Yeah. Right. So I'm always thinking of ways like, okay, if I just sit on this theme for now, where am I going to take it next? Yeah. And how am I going to evolve this, whether it be rhythmically, harmonically, or whether I switch to key bass, for example, play some synth bass, look at different sounds, whether I drop the octaver on and, So we're all thinking very deliberately about, if we're in a studio taking this idea, I'm not going to be playing all of this stuff. Because the engineer would be like, well, what are you doing? Like dial it back. Yeah, there's almost like, and we were kind of saying this in the car. Well, first of all, it's not a jam session. And I think that's really, it's a cultural event. That's, that's really, for me, the best way to describe it. Because if you, for those of you that have either showed up to Producer Mondays, or for those that are listening that haven't been there, it is the most diverse group of people I think you can catch in New York City on a Monday night listening to music. Yeah. I mean, people who, it's not like this musician hang. No. It's people are just showing up there to just enjoy themselves and enjoy life. Exactly. And you guys kind of set the stage for that. But there's such a deep reverence, I feel like, when you guys get up on stage, and a patience and respect for each other. Yeah. How'd you get there? Time. And we have had, a somewhat fluid house band. Okay. The folks that are there now were not necessarily there at the beginning, but we have long relationships. I mean, I met Ray at Freestyle Mondays when I first got here 17 years ago. So we've known each other on and off for quite some time. And now, you know, the core band with Randy Runyon, who's probably like my favorite guitar player.
Incredible dude.
Doesn't think like can shred like a guitar player, but with the mindset of a sound designer, right?
Yeah, he can be. You would think there's another synth player on the right side of the stage,
and he brings samples, and he brings the same. You know, Randy and I talk all the time about how was last night, what can we improve next week, right? But we have the similar mindset about trying to create a mood with what we're playing, rather than, you know, I'm not a shredder anyway. I'm a kind of, you know,
you hold it down.
Yeah, I want to hold it down and create, you know, create ideas, I think is what sticks with people.
Yeah.
Right. And like we were talking about, like making people move, making people respond, people that don't know anything about music.
Dude, we were talking to kind of fill them in on the car ride. Like I was talking about one night that I went with my wife to hear Michelle DeGicello. And if you don't know her, you should know her. And one of the most humble people I've ever met, that I've gotten to know personally. And she would, you know, they would play for 10 minutes just grooving on the same chord. And she would quite literally hide behind the bass amp. She would sit on the, you know, on the steps behind the stage. And by the way, New Blue is also one of the coolest looking rooms.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's unique because the band is in the middle and you have the audience around. It's not this like forward facing experience. It's really inclusive. So she was sitting there and she's playing and it's just groove vibe and like kind of what we were saying, all people, shapes, colors, sizes, everyone's in that room. And I'm looking at, you know, I'm there to hear my bass hero, right? Or like one of my musical heroes. And my wife, who didn't really know her, doesn't really follow. And I'm looking over and she's just dancing. Yeah. And I'm like, that's the goal right there. That's what the greats do, man. That's it. Yeah. That's the point of it all.
100%.
Yeah. So
100%.
I don't know.
And they're the most unassuming people.
Totally.
Usually all of the time.
Because there's no egos on Producer Mondays.
I remember, man, we did a Freestyle Mondays long time ago. And I got there kind of early, and early was about 11 o'clock. And I walked in and there was really no one at the bar, but there was one guy sitting at the bar in a pork pie hat. And I'm like, man, that guy looks familiar. And another bass player friend came in. I'm like, I think that's Marcus. And it was Marcus Miller. And he was sitting there just totally chill, totally unassuming. And I went up to him and I said, hey, you know, like, want to introduce myself. What's up? And, you know, we're going to do this here. And I don't even know if he was there for us. I would like to think he was probably knew that it was going to happen, but I'm like, yeah, it'd just be great if you like, you know, if you feel like you want to play. And he did. He sat in and played, and it was amazing. And it was just so, you know,
we were talking about Thundercat. Same thing.
I mean, when Thundercat came to
we were both there that night.
Yeah. He came to New Blue, and I had my, you know, I have a 5-string P bass that night with flats on it, right? It's an honest.
It's an
keeps
honest
you
bass.
Honest.
Yeah.
And he sat in on it. Sat down.
Literally, sat down.
And just played the bass.
And he like snuck on.
He just snuck on and really played like some incredibly groovy stuff, right? Just pocket stuff. And that's the lesson for the young, you know, younger generation of musicians that go there. It's like to see the guys that you revere for doing their very technical, you know, front of stage bass playing, right? Just to see someone actually that can do all that chooses not to, and just sit back and you know, really support the other 10 people on stage.
Especially
it was amazing.
Someone
it was
like
incredible.
Marcus, because
I
mean, Marcus, I mean, what an icon, what a bass hero, but at the same time, my favorite stuff from Marcus is just all the session work.
Oh yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
And We Want Miles is still like one of my favorite, because that's also like a Marcus album where you hear Marcus go in a different direction that you don't typically hear him in. Mike Stern's on the album, Al Foster. So, dude, and with Thundercat, it was the same thing. Yeah, he came in, he sat there, and he just played pocket.
Yeah,
and it was one of the most beautiful things.
It was amazing.
And didn't sing, didn't do nothing. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
So kind of to that point, so we're talking about people that are musical heroes and still coming up with that same reverence and respect. And I feel like, and tell me if you agree or your thoughts on this, I think one of the unique aspects about Producer Mondays, let's just address maybe the jam part of it for a second. You guys have vocals.
Yeah.
That to me changes everything.
Yeah.
How has playing behind a vocalist who's improvising affected how you guys approach what you do?
Yeah, I mean, it for me, it's incredible. So we've been very fortunate to have a number of house band vocalists. Camila,
Yeah.
she's on tour at the moment, and we have Leia Rich that's singing now, right? And you know, they're both brilliant, and they're both very different, right? Which is amazing. It's you know, we have another instrument to feed off, but we have an instrument with words.
Yeah.
Right.
So they treat it like that.
Yeah. So then, you know, when Camilla gets up on stage and the way she sings and structures what she's singing, weaving in and out, using a loop station to create vocal textures, it's another instrument for me to feed from. Right. So I'll wait to hear what is her lyrical intent of this song.
Yeah.
What is her mood for this song? That's the mood that I'm going to play with.
Wow.
And maybe she develops a melodic theme that I can then pick that up from, or I can start to see, okay, this is what she deems a verse, right?
Wow. Yeah,
and this feels like a chorus, so I can change what I'm not going to just sit there and play the same loop over and over again. I'm going to listen to what she's doing and then support that and support the vocals. And we're trying to do that. Now in the second set, it's a little trickier, right? It's a little different because, you know, you have vocals of varying levels and experience.
Sure. So talk about that transition a little bit, because Producer Monday really has two halves.
Has two halves.
It's two halves, but tell us about both sides and what's the goal of the first set and how does that set up essentially is now the jam portion?
Yeah. So goal of first set is, you know, selfishly for us to explore. So, you know, for us to get our ideas from the following week or whatever out there and explore some new things and experiment, but also to set a tone for the second set and how to approach this environment. Because it's not one of those environments, in my opinion, where you can just get up there and do whatever and live in your world and, you know,
people have got kicked off. We've seen it.
Yeah.
We like
nicely.
There's a respect.
Yeah. Respectfully, but you know, you can be playing for yourself. I mean, I get it. Look, in a competitive city, right, where you are trying to be seen, maybe you're not playing a lot during the week. Maybe you don't even have a gig yet.
Yeah.
Right. So if it is your opportunity to get on stage, there's probably a lot in you that says, now is my chance. I may have 5 minutes to play on a stage this week. So I'm going to try and get as much into this as I can. It happens a lot with drummers.
Interesting.
Happens a lot with drummers.
Okay.
Happens a lot with you know, it's like bass players usually we're pretty chill people, right? But you know, I've seen it. I've seen the frustration for bass players that, you know, and Ray can be hands-on.
Yeah.
You know, I leave a synth bass up there and, you know, maybe sometimes I'll go and just get on the synth bass just to kind of give a bit of direction.
Yeah, there's like coaching that you guys are also doing, I feel, which
I mean,
interesting. It's different.
It is. I don't always like the idea of coaching people on stage. I think that there is something to be learned from working it out yourself and giving people the opportunity to find their groove and their voice. But if you need, you know, sometimes you might not be able to hear it. And there can be some complicated things going on harmonically. You know, for a bass player, we're trying to think, okay, where's the drummer putting the one? Are they even playing a one at the moment? Do I know where the one is? Do I know what the keyboard player, does he know what he's doing yet? Is the guitar player listening to him? Do they know what they're doing yet?
Yeah.
So for us, it's very challenging because our wrong note is going to sound like a wrong note. Our wrong note changes.
Yeah, it changes
what
everything.
Everybody else is doing. Right. So I you know, for people that get up there maybe for the first time or maybe, you know, I get that idea of like, okay, I've got to get it all out.
So for the people that want to find the courage to get up there, what do you say to them? I mean, because I've also been that person that watches on the side and just said, I'm not going on that chair. and then we see people who are, you know, come in on the second half, but they don't stay for the first half. and they've got, they got their bass right, and they're just sitting there waiting in the wings, and it's like, okay, but
yeah. Look, I think when I got here, man, I started going to Freestyle Mondays. I don't think I played for like the first 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't even sit in because I'd come here from playing. I'd never played hip hop music before. I played funk and stuff like that, right? And I remember I came and I listened. Mitch Friedman used to come. I mean, Mitch taught me so much about how to approach that style of bass playing. And I would watch Mitch. Oh, man, he's so like, rhythmically, like so laid back, so pocket, heavy tone.
Subdivisions are just perfect.
Yeah, and I'm like, do I know how to do this? Yeah. Well, not really, not yet. And I remember maybe the first time I sat in, I played super big, like, I defaulted to my funk roots.
Got it.
Right. Yeah. And I realized after, I'm like, that's not cool. So I'm just going to like listen a little bit more. And I guess what I would say to like anyone that's coming for the first time is don't feel bad if you don't get up there. We have 45 minutes to squeeze in as many people as we can. And sometimes being up there for 3 minutes is not as valuable as like spending 2 hours in the room and getting to know people.
Yeah, for real.
Because everybody comes there. And you could be in the room with James Genus or Thundercat or Hadrian Farod, right? Or Chris Dave or Anderson .Paak or Questlove. And these are all guys that have come and played. And the irony of it is when these guys come and play, they do the opposite of what everyone thinks that, Chris came up but Chris sits in and plays one groove. And it's this bed of pocket. And it's amazing. But he's not,
Yeah, it's music it's not self-serving music.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson, because really, like, you get into any professional situation, whether it be live recording, you can't do it for you.
Yeah.
You can bring part of your personality into it. And the great bass players do, right? But then there's others, there's the Pinos of this world that shapeshift through various different situations, right? And that's what we try to do.
Yep.
Because we're shapeshifting through different genres. We might have,
was it a couple weeks ago? You had
someone that's rapping or whatever.
Yeah, you had a string orchestra, I remember one night, where it was amazing to see Ray like literally conduct a mini orchestra right behind him.
Correct.
And those were all classical, working classical musicians who showed up and suddenly were playing pocket and groove.
Yeah.
And
that's not their environment, right?
Exactly.
There's no sheet music in front of them.
None.
So it can be nerve-wracking. I get it. It can be
nervous
nerve-wracking
for them. Because it was dude, but it was also like watching them and hearing them play. It was you could tell it was so freeing, and that's why I feel like
of course, it's
a cultural event. It was like, oh my god, I get a chance to do this. I'm gonna go play 100%. Chopin again for like the 100th time. But 100%. Here I get to be me with my instrument.
Exactly.
So,
but with respect to the ensemble.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge, because you have, you might have 6 string players and 2 guitarists and drummer and percussion and 3 singers.
Yeah.
Right. So then it's like, well, what's my space to play? And sometimes my space is space. Is just to leave as much room as possible.
I think MySpace is going to get a good amount of royalty checks from us for mentioning MySpace so much. Shout out to MySpace. But so let me ask you this. So you've shared so much great wisdom about what others should, approaching Producer Mondays or any situation. This is not just a Producer Monday conversation, obviously, right? This is life. But what, if you could remember, whether it's with Ray or with the band or Nubla, what was one of your big teaching, learning moments for yourself as a musician in that environment?
I mean, I think it was early on when I got here.
Okay.
And just knowing that my whatever preconceived notion of how I approach playing as a result of my education on bass, right, wasn't necessarily always going to work here. And I had to learn from New York players how to fit in to this scene. And that really changed the way that I play, completely changed the way that I play. And then the other thing I learned is you're in this competitive place with all of these great musicians, right? how do you navigate an inferiority complex? Okay.
Yeah.
How do you
talk about
navigate?
that?
Well,
Because I feel like that's a lot, especially in the context of a jam. It's like you
Of
hear two
course.
people and you're like,
Look, man.
I'm not doing that.
no, and I'll come off stage and the next guy gets up and I'm like, damn. Oh man. But it was my friend and incredible keyboardist, Big Yuki.
Yeah.
Right.
Love it.
Who is arguably one of the best bass players.
Yes. Yes.
The
Absolutely.
best
Yes.
left hand in the business.
100%.
Can synth bass play rings around a lot of people.
And like the energy he throws into it, I feel like he's going to knock his keys over constantly. Yeah.
He's an individual, and that's the point. Is we, years ago at Old New Blue, I had my own residency where I wasn't even playing bass. We were doing electronic music. I got into that whole world of live programming and all of this kind of stuff. I think I took a key bass out there, and Yuki and I used to talk after the gig, and he said to me, "Man, like, really, all you have to do is like." Find your voice and really focus on finding your own voice, because you can be surrounded by all of these incredible musicians, right?
Yeah.
And there's always a guy that's younger and better and faster at playing your instrument. It's true.
Yeah.
And whoever they are, there's someone else. Like going to Instagram and there's 10-year-olds that sound incredible, that sound like they've been playing for 20 years, right? With the same kind of sensibilities. So it's like, well, I can always, hear someone and go, man, I really want to sound like that.
Yeah.
Or I can just develop I want to sound like me, right? So it's about finding, well, what is my sound, right? And part of that was delving into things outside of electric bass. It was getting into synth bass.
Yeah.
I started taking synth bass to jam sessions.
Really?
I used to drag a Moog Voyager.
Oh my God.
I dragged the Moog Voyager to the lesson, and I would set it up and I would play synth bass. And I did that for a long time, like where people didn't even know I played electric bass.
What?
And that's why I have a synth bass. I have a synth bass set every Monday, right?
Yeah. And you still have it.
Yeah.
You toggle between both in the middle depending on where it goes.
Depending on where the vibe of the music goes. But playing that was liberating, because all of a sudden I was outside musically, out of my technical limitations on the electric bass.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there are technical limit. I mean, not for everybody, but there's certain things that, I can't do a 3-octave.
Yeah, no, I can't.
Interval, right?
No,
like
I have
this.
short hands.
Right, exactly, right? So, and then sound-wise, I'd always, I love synth bass playing.
Yeah.
So I would try to create it with pedals. I would be like, okay, I'm going to need to chain an envelope filter and an octaver, and I need this and this and this and this and this. And then I've got no bottom end and blah, blah, blah. And then I just got a Moog. And I'm like, man. I went for it. I had some piano education when I was young, but nothing really serious. But it was until I got it and started taking it. And then, man.
So I feel like I have a question then, because you said it, like your voice, and which, I mean, we've also heard, right, your sound, and we have so many people, I think, that always come back like, how do you find your voice? How do you find your sound? It's this like kind of question we throw around all the time, but how do you define that? Because I don't feel, especially knowing you, and it's not about how you pluck. It's not about where your tone knob is set up. It's not really that. I feel like it's, every time I hear you and we have conversations about this, it's always like, it's from a deeper place. So what is that for you? What do you tell the youngest, saying, man, I'm trying to find my voice and I'm buying all this gear? Has nothing to really do with that.
Yeah, it's never the gear.
Yeah.
I mean, good gear helps, right?
Yes.
Good gear will expose.
By Aguilar.
Good gear by Aguilar, right? Helps, right?
Shameless plug.
Yeah, but good gear just exposes, the subtleties of where you're either strong or weak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And getting a really great bass or a really great amp isn't going to help you. It might encourage you to spend more time practicing,
I like that. Yes,
right?
that's a good point. Yep.
It does, because if you're playing stuff that sucks, you don't want to go and play it.
You want to stay inspired, for sure.
And it can also help steer you in a direction. Like, I didn't always play this bass, right? I played all kinds of basses over the years, had a very long relationship with Warwick basses, right?
Yeah.
I love their basses, and they were always really good to me as I was building my career. And then, I kind of came full,
It goes full circle.
you come full circle.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all
I
of a
get
sudden, like I'm back on a P bass with flats, right? So there's now like I can't play as fast on this as I listen to stuff I used to play, 10 years ago on those instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I can't play that anymore, but I don't.
You don't want to?
No, it's not really like.
Do you feel like you're hearing another version of yourself, or like you're looking back and say, that was young
Now
Lex.
I look back and I go, that's a lot of notes. That's a lot of notes. And I remember what it was hearing, I used to play with a hip hop artist named Blitz the Ambassador.
Yeah.
Great artist.
Yeah.
And he's now an incredible filmmaker, right? He's gone into some.
He's doing films?
Yeah, he co-produced The New Color Purple.
Wow.
With Spielberg, right? But I played with him for a while. And it was really African-infused. He's from Ghana.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
African-infused hip-hop. A lot of horns, a lot of rhythms, a lot of heavy parts, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember listening once to a rehearsal recording that we did. I'm like, man, do I need,
I need to do all that?
No, because I go and listen to records that I like.
Uh-huh.
I'm a huge Radiohead fan, right? And this is the example I always use is Airbag.
Yeah.
First song from OK Computer, where he just plays, it's like he's put himself in a sampler. And if you can find the demos of that song, which they did release, on the demos he plays the changes. He plays with the changes, right? And on the album cut, he's just playing one loop. And it's just completely changes the vibe of the song. And I thought, that is a great approach to playing.
Colin is such an underrated bassist when it comes, because Kid A too, there's some great, what's that?
National Anthem.
National Anthem. Oh my God. Dude, incredible.
One bass part the whole way, right? So
Dude,
so when you start playing, when you start taking that approach, right? And I like to think of that approach to myself on Mondays, where I go, okay, what is my theme? What is my theme going to be for whatever we're playing? Okay, this is it. I'm committing to your ideas. Right? That's one thing about finding your voice, is like having an idea and committing to it. And then I'm like, okay, what if I was a producer now? I gave the producer this sample, and now I'm going to bring it in and out. And I'm going to just stop. There'd be moments where I just stop playing. I leave 2 bars.
Yeah.
And then I come back in.
And you do it in the smoothest way. You get your drink, you come back. I see you got the tabs.
I take
what's up, Jay?
Yeah,
I'm like, hey, man, you don't want to play? Like,
but it's that approach. The great drummers that we have will do that. And if we really know each other, we'll catch it at the same time.
Yeah.
And you're creating impactful moments, right? So finding your voice, for me, it was about simplification of what I'm playing in the left hand, but then more subtlety in the right hand, right? And when I don't often teach, but when I do, every now and then someone from Monday we'll sit down and we'll go over some stuff. Like one exercise I try and give is well, let's play one simple line over and over and over and over again. Don't change the notes or the rhythm, but change the feel, right? And it's a right hand phrasing thing. It's a right hand, technique thing. It's the subtleties of attack, note length, sustain, accents, all of these can change the whole character of the line. So that's kind of where, my thinking started going into like the subtleties of
and I feel like mechanically on the left hand too, like one thing I always really love when I hear you play is that, and again, I guess the word I keep coming back to is patient. But when you do decide to change the route and you do decide to maybe throw Ray something else for him to go, the whole room shifts. Yeah. And it comes at just the right moment. Yeah. And I feel like it's always, and you said it earlier, and I was going to ask you about, but like lyrics. Yeah. I feel like there's some nights where the girls are pouring their heart out. In poetry. I mean, it's really, it's almost like a spoken word thing. Yeah. And you guys are so respectful to that. So we're talking about subtleties on the right hand, but when you say you said, man, when a bass player comes in, it's like, we're really kind of like putting our foot down, but talk about that melodically. It's like, what is in your head? Like, how do you think about mood shifts?
I think about them either in terms of like a harmonic approach or even just a more maybe it's a more aggressive approach to really hitting the string, right? Because I'll play, a lot.
Yeah. Please go ahead, grab.
I'll play a lot over the fingerboard, man.
You do, yeah.
Because I like that full sound, right? And I'll roll the tone all the way off.
Because I feel like you're kind of mimicking synth bassy kind of right now on your instrument.
Yeah. And but then maybe when it's really time, I can really like
hit it, yeah.
But again, it's accents, right? Because it's, I could be playing like boring like this, or I could be, whatever it is. The right hand, is it different from going?
Yeah.
Right?
It's in the subtlety.
It's in the subtlety. So I try and teach, to think about, if the lines, that's the line. I change it. At its most simplest, right? But it could be. Just simple stuff, man, like simple changes. Note length is not something bass players are always thinking about because they're playing.
They're too focused here.
Yeah. Right? Like you learning how to play like 16th note funk. So then everything feels like 16th note funk. Even if it's not a 16th note funk kind of thing. But I'm just trying to think like, I want to be like smooth with it, So I'll often play here. I'm rarely actually playing here unless I need to play something with a level of dexterity you can't get from the tension when you're playing it.
I remember there was like a clip I saw one time, Michael Lee, where he was like, they were like, oh, what octave pedal are you using? He's like, I'm not. I'm actually just here.
There's so many tones you can coax out of the bass.
Totally.
Just by where you.
Yeah. Can you give an example? So for like, just give us some of the variety that you would go through, let's say on a month.
I mean, open the tone note. So, you're getting more clunky.
Yeah.
Roll the tone off. Even with the tone on, right? It's fuller sound.
Like
and it gets some of that, So I'm thinking too, like, well, what kind of sound do I want on this? And maybe I'm not going to get it out of the bass. I'll go the synth. Or maybe, one of my favorite tricks is throw an octave pedal, but just a sub octave. Play an octave higher and get that kind of, I want that subby kind of synth bass, but with the attack. I don't get the attack on the synth bass.
That's right.
I get the attack on the electric.
And then the synth you go. So,
and I wish I could play. One day I'm going to learn how to like fret with this hand. Yeah, maybe something sick.
Yo, you do it pretty slick though, man. When I watch you, I'm like, this guy is hopping.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like double dutch watching you go between your bass and your synth. So for those that are saying, okay, Lex, man, you've been talking all these influences you've had on Producer Mondays. You talk about Freestyle Mondays. You're going through singers. You're talking about all this. What are some of the most influential? Give me one or two albums that made you think differently about your role as a bass player.
Voodoo. Yeah, I mean, goes without saying, right? Okay, I mean, Radiohead. I'm a huge Radiohead fan. Okay,
so what is it about Radiohead though? Because I mean, definitely, I would imagine not probably the first album that people are gonna, or artist, if somebody's gonna think about for bass.
Yeah,
but I mean, talk about that.
Look, I don't get me wrong. I went through the whole journey of listening to bass records, right? And I actually started with Nirvana. And if you really listen to Nevermind, that has some incredibly melodic lines on it. And I learned those, went through to Pearl Jam. I mean, 10. You got a guy playing like fretless
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? You
Yeah,
know, I heard
crazy.
that when I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know, Primus, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like you learn, I went through all the bass player records.
Got it.
Right. But then as I started, my taste kind of shifted. I got into like a lot of like, I'm a huge Square Pusher fan, for example.
Oh, Square Pusher.
Virtuosic
Wow.
bass player.
Yeah.
Virtuosic bass player, but does not play it. You know, sometimes he'll play it like a bass, but otherwise he's affecting it with all kinds of stuff, right? And then my obsession with Radiohead just comes from, you know, soundscapes and song structure and like, you know, the beauty in it is that I'm not listening for a good bass line. Even though there are good bass lines, I'm not like, this song sucks if the bass part's not cool.
Sure.
I don't care about that kind of stuff. It's like, if the song is cool, it's cool. And when I started getting into that, and I remember when Kid A, you know, came out and the backlash.
Yeah.
Where are the guitars, right?
Yep.
I listened to that record. I'm like, man, this is incredible.
It was like a movie score.
It's like a movie score.
How to Disappear Completely is like one of my favorite.
And I'm like,
track.
where are these sounds coming from? Right? Is there a bass line on this? I don't even hear one. Right? And then National Anthem hits you and you're like, damn, there it is.
That's
right?
it.
But that made me want to explore things outside of bass.
Yeah.
And start to see music, you know, more as a whole. Right? And start to get, you know, inspiration from other things within the music, aside from, you know.
And without, I mean, because I know we've been kind of steering away from gear, but how is that a part of your sound? How should people start to think about the nuance of their sound? Because like, just by way of example, you know, at New Blue, the house rig was your GS 212 for a little while.
Yep.
That was the OG with your 750, which, man, if you want to see some road worn Aguilar gear, check out Lex's.
Fallen out of cabs. It's had bar water leak on it. You know, one thing about New York venues is there's a drip.
There's no mercy.
There's always a drip, and it's usually above the bass rig. Doesn't matter where you go, but it's always there.
For those that are listening, he's not exaggerating.
No, it's not a lie.
True story. I came to New Blue to replace we had to swap out some speakers last minute, and I literally looked at it, I was like, bro, this ain't happening. Like,
No, it's
I'm not,
sticky.
it's falling apart right now.
There's a level of sticky filth that
it's a rite of passage.
It's a rite of passage.
Exactly.
To get something,
But that was a big part of your sound, and then we swapped that out for an SL410, and you went to 10s. And that, I remember the first night we went to hear you, and you were playing that rig, and you played differently. So how should people be thinking about their gear in that way as that other tool? Yeah,
so that's actually a weakness of mine. And I'll tell you, because you schooled me a little bit on that.
Okay.
I thought I needed 12s. I thought, you know what, 12, I'm playing 5-string and synth bass.
Yeah.
And I actually blame Stu Brooks for this.
Oh no,
Stu Brooks.
Sorry, Stu. We
Great
love you.
bass player and a dear friend. One of my favorite bass players.
Incredible.
One of my dearest friends. But when I first got to New York, I went to see Stu play at a venue called Rose Live Music. I don't know if you ever went to Rose.
I know. I never went.
I think it was on Havemeyer or Grand Street, somewhere in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Tiny room, right? The stage was about where you're sitting.
Basically.
And the audience is a little further back than where I was sitting. I walked in to see Stu play, and he had must have been the fives head, and a 4x12 cabinet.
Oh yeah, he's a diehard with the 4x12.
Had the 4x12, and I walked in, and I'm like, man, this is about to be sick. And I'm like, that's what I need. Yeah. I need this. So I don't care how big the venue is. I need this. And I actually, you know, I was so naive, man. Listen, I was so naive to how New York works. Because I saw him bring this. So I'm like, I'm here. Okay, I need an amp. I want the best thing. Okay, I'm going to buy it. I went and bought a DB 750 and a 2x12, right? And then I went to my first gig, and there's a house rig there. Yeah. And I'm like, wait a second, I don't have to bring... I don't have to bring this. Why am I...
50-plus pound head.
Oh, man. I remember loading that into a cab.
Yo.
And at the end of the night, having to pack that up. So then it lived in my apartment, and you know I can't crank that thing up there.
Sure.
So finally, it made its way to. I got tired of the New Blue. I'm not going to name the brand,
but
terrible house rig.
It was rough. I remember that. Yep,
it was rough. And I'm like, you know what? This thing is sitting at home.
Yeah.
And they're built so well. I know that it's going to get abused.
But
I know that it's going to get abused, but
it held it down.
It held it down, and the cabinet held it down as long as
we should put that little thing in like a glass case.
I
It's
think
like
so.
a little like New York relic at this
It
point.
is a relic.
Even the 750 that you have, that joint
it's
is
a relic,
bent,
but it still
broken.
sounds
It's still kicking.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing,
and it's become the little like stand for all the mixers.
Yeah, I know. The DI rack sits on top of it.
But now you've got the 10s. You got the SL410 on there, which it was a different character.
It sounds amazing.
Punchy, a little forward, more forward than the 12s. What was the difference for you?
Yeah, it's a little bit more forward than the 12s. And that room, I'm often scolded by Kyo, our engineer. It's like, man, can you just turn it down a bit? And I do, but the 10s definitely help fit the space.
Yeah. It definitely helped fit because Ray and the rest of the crew, I mean, they are building low end around you as well.
Oh, yeah.
Really cool.
Ray will start playing a bass line, right? On whatever keyboard he's playing. So then I'm like, okay, well, what am I,
Yeah.
do I go with this? No, I'm gonna just wait and see where he goes. And then maybe I just start like doubling it on the synth bass or something. Man, it's incredible ear training. That's the real, like, what I learned so much in the city from playing these improv sessions is just being able to immediately, like, not immediately always, but pretty close. I don't think I have perfect pitch, but I can. The ear training you get from that, man, is like second to none. And for me, that's just, you can walk into then any musical situation, and if you don't know the song, at least be able to start to pick up what's going on and predict where it's going to go.
And Producer Monday is a great place to start to learn that.
Absolutely. But that comes from listening and not being like, man, I got to play tonight. I got to play tonight. No, you can listen to what James Genius is sitting in right now. Don't tap him on the shoulder. I've seen it happen. Even if you don't know who James is, hear what James is doing.
Yeah.
You should know who James is, but if you don't, don't tap him on the shoulder and ask him to get off.
Nope.
Because he's about to do something you would have to pay hundreds of dollars to go see. And they're the people you can learn from. Yeah. And they're the kind of people that come.
It's a great crazy space to go hear your heroes in a way you never expected to hear
100%.
them. So, and Lex, just, as we're kind of like winding down, which, man, what an incredible conversation. I'm thinking about a lot. I'm going to go to sleep early on Sunday to make sure that I'm there Monday. But what are you listening to these days? What's on your iPod? Sorry, I know we still say iPod, but it's your phone. But just give us one thing that people can take away from this.
I'm actually listening to Jordan Rickay.
Yes.
Because he was there on Monday.
Stop.
He was there.
Ah, oh, damn it.
And shout out. His new record is amazing. Incredible.
Yeah.
And he was there on Monday and I had a fanboy moment because he messaged me the next day and I'm like, dude, that's cool. His music's incredible.
Yeah, his music.
So him and then Aphex Twin just put out some new stuff.
Sounds good.
I'm finding time again to listen to music recreationally because it's been a long time. Because here you get thrown, hey man, can you play this gig on Saturday? Yep. Okay, I'll get you the Dropbox. Dropbox comes 24 hours before or maybe on the day. And then you have to like cram the music that you have to learn. I just spent so much time learning people's music that I just stopped, didn't always listen to music recreationally, but Jordan's record is incredible. And then I revisit, I was listening to Chaka Khan Naughty the other day because I saw it on Tiny Desk.
Yeah, Chaka did a Tiny Desk.
I'm like, man, I got to revisit Naughty.
Melvin Davis on bass.
Incredible. But that record, Naughty,
awesome.
Move Me No Mountain is a lesson in bass playing. And then what you're going to do for me for key bass, Greg Fillinganes, go and listen to that record.
I'm gonna go.
They're the only two records you need to
That's
know.
the only two. That's
Just listen to those two if you want to learn.
Well, Lex, thank you so much, man, for spending time with us and dropping just bars of knowledge, and we're grateful. And for those that, if you're in New York City, Monday nights, Producer Mondays, come check it out. Stay for both sets.
Come for the first. Come for the
first.
A drink, stay for the second.
Yeah, you got to come for both. And for those in New York, man, just show up every Monday, because we legit don't know who's going to show up.
You don't know who's going to be there.
And you've already heard the names that we've called out. So it's an incredible night. But Lex Sadler, thank you so much
for being
on the pod.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.